Well, hello, Boise Startup Week 2020. I'm Mike Self, one of the general partners here at Staged Idaho Ventures. We're actually broadcasting from our fairly new home here at 110 Main, right in downtown Boise. Before we get started, we'd like to thank everyone involved in the Boise Startup Week. Just a really important event for the ecosystem every year, and we certainly weren't going to let COVID get in the way this year from us doing it. So a big shout out for all the effort. I'm actually here today with our newest general partner, Andy Scoggin, who joined us this year. And we're really excited to talk about not only the ecosystem, but some of the exciting things that we're doing here in Boise. So welcome, Andy.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to be able to talk a little bit to the audience of entrepreneurs, of those who support entrepreneurs and who support the ecosystem that we have here in Boise, Idaho. It's one of the greatest places in the country, we believe, to build a business.
Yeah, you know, it's almost 2 years ago exactly that Andy and I met. We were invited over by Jeff Sayer and the Rectify group to speak to a group of folks here in Boise, as we were very interested in the ecosystem and everything it had to offer. So exactly, actually 23 months to the day, we actually met when we spoke. And so it's been a great journey getting to know Andy, and we couldn't be any more excited to have him join the partnership. So, yeah, I think maybe in starting off, you've been in Idaho long enough where you're definitely considered a local in many ways, and I'd be interested in kind of talking a little bit about how you've seen the ecosystem evolve over the last 20, 30 years.
Those who've lived here during the same time that I have, or even who've come in the last decade or more, really have seen the vibrancy, the excitement, the energy that's been going on here, Mike. And my wife and I moved here 28 years ago with two little daughters who are now grown and have children of their own. And I came here to start with a little Intermountain retail company by the name of Albertsons. And little did I know the changes, the metamorphosis, the undoing and the rebuilding, et cetera, that we would go through as a company, and the incredible opportunities that would provide for many, many people here. But also to see far more than just that one experience, what was going on around us during the same time that we were here, watching people starting to recognize what this city has to offer, what this valley has to offer, what this entire state has to offer, really, north, south, east to west, in terms of, we have seen Boise State, let's take an example, grow dramatically. And Bob Custer and then Marlene Tromp now leading a great group there, thinking beyond the little university that they were, and thinking about how to really drive innovation. And then looking at companies that have found this place to be their home and watching what they've done to be able to establish roots, build great products and services and reputations, but also bring along people who knew they could aspire to something great but needed to have that infrastructure of businesses. We've seen some businesses recently that have really stepped up and grown beyond this valley, but they still call this place home. And even when we started our Albertsons LLC turnaround 14 years ago, we made one decision, and that was that though we didn't have a single store in Idaho at the time, we were not going to take our headquarters anywhere else. Our stores were in Texas and Florida and Colorado and Northern California. We didn't have a store here, but we knew that this was where the people that were going to understand how to build businesses and how to work hard and how to dream big, where were we going to find them? And we knew that there were enough of them here to grow our business. And I've seen that happen over and over and over again now. And just what happened in almost 30 years since we came here, when downtown, was just in the beginning of opening its wings and starting to develop. You already felt that this was a great place to live, but it's almost inconceivable how much has happened just in those 30 years, those 28 to years plus that we've been here. And I believe that the blue sky for this valley in this state is really all ahead of us. The foundation has now been built in terms of great people that have come here, great ideas that have been born here. And what you, Mike, and your partners who had founded Stage.0, located on the West Coast, saw here, many others are seeing, and that is opportunity to really build great companies.
Well, that's interesting. For years, I would sit on my brother's deck up in El Paseo and look out over the city of trees, and the region had all of the characteristics that should be growing an ecosystem. When you take a look at legacy technology companies that were built here, and the Microns and the presence of Hewlett Packard, and all those are interesting. But really, the interesting thing for us, and you're a big part of that, is over the last 23 months is we really think the secret sauce here is the people. And the ingredients of every ecosystem has its own characteristics, and to see the grit and what it takes in order to build a company and marry that with the folks here in Idaho really matters. Can you talk a little bit about kind of some of the ingredients that you've seen here with not only entrepreneurs, but just in the business community?
Yeah, you talked about grit, and I really think that is something that great businesses are built on. And what I've seen as I've worked around the country with others who invest and with startups that I don't see here is that there are unfortunately trends in some of these, what you might call startup hubs, to want to just build something and flip it as quick as you can and make a quick buck. And I don't see that here. I see people, and that's why I stay here and put my money here, is because I see people who want to build businesses that are going to last for generations. And those are the kind of businesses in the long run that change marketplaces, that allow generations of people to earn a great living, to send their kids to college, to put down roots, and then to spawn new businesses and new ideas, et cetera. And we're seeing the evolution of that, or the growth of those seeds that were planted. You look at the early Microns, you look at when HP came here. These are 30, 40 years ago or more, and there are still great green shoots that are coming from those decisions and from those people that came here with the idea that they're going to build long-term businesses, that they're going to change the world. And even in the last week or two, we're seeing the Cradle Points and the Clearwater Analytics over the last couple of years, and others, and there's many others, who have shown that when you build something to last, and when you're willing to really dig in and prove yourself, your business is going to not only establish itself, but it's going to move to a point where all of a sudden it just grows exponentially, and that benefits so many people in our community.
Yeah, what's the, it's interesting, we talk with a lot of entrepreneurs, and one of the biggest things that we'll ask them is, what are we trying to accomplish? And, are we trying to build a small business? Are we trying to build a venture-backed business? Or what exactly are we trying to accomplish? Talk a little bit about what the difference is in that. And I think that there's maybe a connotation that building a small business is bad, which is really not true at all.
Right.
The ecosystem needs everything. But can you talk a little bit about the difference between building a good niche business versus a venture-backed business, and kind of what that difference is? I mean, you've worked with entrepreneurs from ideation all the way up to having Cerberus as your investor for 10 to 15 years. What are the differences there?
And I will begin by agreeing strongly with what you just said, and that is that small businesses are the backbone of any great local community. And I'm talking about anything from a construction business to a service business to food businesses and all those things. And they strengthen and bring ties to them. But then there are other businesses who tend to play in a different marketplace. And those are businesses which have the ability to grow and scale beyond their local geographics, beyond the local type of marketplaces. And when one does really well, they're really almost have an infinite potential to grow. They go through the growing pains and if they pass through those growing pains, they will become a great business. But if they keep their roots where they started and they give back to that community they come from, it drives the next business, the next business, the next business. But what we're looking for is we're looking for people who have ideas, because it has to start with first, great people, second, great ideas, and third, a tremendous ability to just work smart and with passion and bring others to your cause to say, this thing can change healthcare, this thing can change hospitality, this thing can change cybersecurity, this thing can change how people work in the marketplace of ideas or of automobiles or of anything. And can that work in Dubuque? And can that work in Boise, Idaho? Can that work in London? Can that work in Hong Kong? And people that have great ideas, they often transcend those kind of boundaries, and they understand early on that though the people that are looking at their business are thinking, oh, good, you're building this little thing, they start with, I'm not building that little thing. Steve Jobs wasn't building a toy. He was building a thing to change the world. And we love having the chance to rub shoulders with people like that and see that they combine passion with a tremendous ability to work, a lot of enthusiasm. They don't get disappointed easily. And then what we can add to that is support and counsel and wrap around the experience that you've had, decades of experience in that world of growing businesses, of finance, et cetera. I've had different set of skills that has helped me to see how to deal with growth pains in large businesses and work with technical deals that had 1,000 different moving parts at a time. And as you said, and I'll bring this back to your point about Cerberus. Cerberus Capital Management was one of Albertson's 5 investors. They were our lead investor. They're a big private equity firm that has, I don't know today, 60, 70, 80 portfolio companies all over the world. And we would go back and spend a lot of time in New York City working with them. And what you come to understand is the mindset of people who invest for the long term and then continue to double down and triple down on their investments to help these very hardworking and aspiring entrepreneurs or turnaround artists or whoever you're investing in to build that thing that they know they can build, and you as an investor couldn't necessarily build it, but you can give them everything they need to get there. You can open doors, you can supply resources, you can be on the phone with them at midnight when the deal's falling apart to say it's going to work out okay, and of course help with filling in those holes. We as a big company, taking Albertsons, we could fill all our executive team positions, but small businesses that I've invested in that have now become larger businesses, when they start off, you didn't have someone that was just a CFO or that was just head of purchasing, et cetera. Everyone was doing everything. And how can we, as the VC investors, step in and say, we also know how to get things done with you, and what do you need me to throw on my shoulders for the next quarter to help you to get there? Yeah. I'm hoping to express that well.
I love the point that you bring up about like the grit and really what it takes and really what the bigger goal is. And I love telling this story about the first company we invested in Boise, PlexTrack, Dan DeClaus, cybersecurity platform. In our first meeting, I asked the invariable question, what are we trying to accomplish here? And Dan, I think, will always have the all-time best response to this. And he said, I want to create as many wealthy people as I can in the Treasure Valley. And I'm never going to get a better answer than that to that question.
That's the kind of business I want to get behind.
Yeah. And Matt, one of our other partners, was with us, and he kind of chuckled and looked at Dan and said, well, I don't know if we're going to invest in you or not, but you're getting another meeting. and I think that's really what it takes, because when you're an entrepreneur and you decide to go all in, it's more than just showing up and punching the clock and getting a paycheck. It is truly a way of life. Not only are you all in, but your significant other is all in, your family is all in. And we view it at Stage.O as there's not a greater responsibility than an entrepreneur allowing you to write them a check. And there's a great responsibility that comes with that. Can you talk a little bit maybe about that and your perspective on that?
Well, the first thing, what you just reminded me when you talk about Dan DeCloss and some of the other people that we now have, and we haven't mentioned this yet, but we now have 4 portfolio companies. We're really looking at building out 10 portfolio companies for this fund. That's not a huge number compared to some venture capital firms who sprinkle a lot of money out there and then just kind of wait to see what grows. And one of the things I loved about you guys when I watched how you had built your first fund, and as you and I had conversations for months about what you want to do, was we want to concentrate our ability into a select group of companies and see them through versus this Darwinian idea of survival of the fittest. We're going to be very much a part of that, and I think that comes into this idea about who do you invest in. And one of the things that's very important to me when I look at investing in a company is how the leader interacts with people. How do they treat people? How do they care about people? And I'm talking about the employees that they've begun to hire, but they're inevitably going to grow. But I'm also talking about their vendors. I'm talking about their customers. I'm talking about their competitors. I'm talking about their own interactions, and how do they see the long run in engaging with people? Because to me, that says a lot about what that ride's going to be like. And as a venture capital firm, we're not investing for 2 years or 3 years. And private equity firms, frankly, like to turn companies in a few years if they can. This is a 7, 8, 9, 10-year relationship with a business, and you don't make those decisions lightly. And once you're in, you've got to be all in, and you've got to be there to develop and handhold and strengthen and do whatever you can beyond just providing a check or two.
Yeah, it's well, you've been a part of a lot of general partner meetings now, so you've got to hear the banter and provide a great perspective on one of our when we invest, we look for ideas that we think have the potential to become billion-dollar companies, valued at $1 billion, the Cradle Points of the world, and so on and so forth. That's what we're trying to build. Can you explain a little bit in the venture process? What does that look like? We can throw out that unicorn, that $1 billion number, but how do you get from point A to point B? Because you're investing in it now, and you've also seen that happen. So you've really been on both sides of the equation. So you want to share a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, well, I think it starts with fundamentals. And when I've been in, now since the last 4 months, I've really been involved directly with this partnership, this venture capital group. And there are 4 active partners in this fund, and we are very blunt when we look at business, because you have to be. So this is never rude, never disrespectful, but we're very clear on looking at the fundamentals of a business, both when we have great entrepreneurs in the room with us, in the conference room as we're talking through and hearing their pitches and hearing what they say. And I love doing that because you feel that interest and passion from people, for the most part, when they're pitching to you. But then when they leave and we're talking, we're trying to leave no stone unturned. We really want to know how they're going to get from point A to point Z, and all the letters in between, to know how they're going to get there. And so you're looking at models, and we all know that models change dramatically in a small business as it becomes a large business. But what is their ability to see that future, to articulate that future, to be able to then bring it back to the next sale and the next sale and the next sale? What is their process? What are the principles that are going to ground them as a business? And what are they going to use to be able to continue to innovate? Because if there's one thing I found in investing in businesses, is that they're living in a dramatically heightened cycle of research and development and new product development and change. And so what the horse you rode on, if it's a brand new piece of technology or whatever it might be, for the last year that got you from sales from $1 million to $50 million, probably that horse isn't going to get you to 100 or 200. It's going to be a variation on that, but you're going to have to add, and you're going to have to keep thinking around corners to what's around that corner and how do I get there. And so we're looking for people whose minds are working that way, but are also incredibly grounded in keeping this product alive and very excited about building what they have now and not just thinking about the future. So how do you find someone that is incredibly good at looking at these trees right in front of me and incredibly good at articulating the forest at the same time? And that's a very special skill set, and very few people really have it. But when you find it, you want to jump into the ring with them and stay there.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good point. And then the most difficult part of our analysis is ultimately, can we really help the entrepreneur, right? Because if we're just a check, that's actually not enough for us to be able to invest, right? Because we're trying to create really big companies. So, and that's difficult. You know, we've looked at some companies, and it's like, you know, we may not be the right group for them to be able to provide what the entrepreneur needs, just based on what our skill sets are.
And we may even look at them and say they're going to be an incredible success, but we probably aren't the ones that can help them get there. Someone else is going to be better at that, and we're going to cheer for them.
Yeah, and that's hard, you know. And then then we try and help along the way. So, can you talk a little bit about the companies? You know, I think that most people in town here really know about, you know, the success and what you and Bob Miller and the group was able to accomplish with Albertsons, which I love telling that story, by the way. And most people here know it, but outside of Idaho, I just love telling that story because it's so great. But you know, I would say I don't think most people know how much you've mentored early stage entrepreneurs and what that process has been like, because you've been involved in some companies that are, you know, gone from ideation to $100, $200 million in revenue. What's that like, being a mentor, being a leader, being a part of that process?
One of the things I realized early about myself, and I think people fall into some very specific groups, and I tend to see them as, in business, you know, you have entrepreneurs, people that like to start things, and then you have people who really fit into this steady state management area where they're very talented at just managing something that's already grown and solid and just keeping those wheels on the track. And then you've got people who are great at turning around a once great business that has lost its luster, but you know there's still great structure in that in products, if you can unlock those back again. So 3 areas. The one I knew that I was probably the least born to do was be an entrepreneur, but I love entrepreneurs. And so, to your point, Mike, some years ago, you know, we're going back a decade and a half now, I started saying, how do I find some of those people, and how do I, you know, be able to be on that ride with them financially, so invest, strategically, so be on boards, and really also be involved in the tangible, I should say, ability of growing those companies while not, you know, having to go knock on the doors all day long, but find great entrepreneurs that love to do that and get behind them and put a little wind into their sails. And so I've had a few. I know, I'm fortunate that I know some really great investors here in this valley already that have, you know, before you came and before that you're the next level iteration, which is venture capital that's really structured, but had already begun to do that. And I've got a company I've worked with, a foods company, which we started with $0. Today, this year we'll be punching $100 million in sales. Gone international, built 2 factories, actually built 3 factories now, 1 outside the U.S. and 2 within the U.S. You know, the growth is starting to grow dramatically. You know, instead of going $4 or $5 million or $10 million a year, now we're seeing $25 and $30 million and $40 million a year growth, and eventually I think $100 million and more. But there were a lot of late nights when that particular entrepreneur, who I had bet on him because I knew that he was the kind of person that doesn't give up and that constantly innovates, and started with 1 product. Now that business has over 65 SKUs that are going into everything from Walmart to Costco to a lot of regional players to you know, Tesco in United Kingdom and everywhere else. there were nights where he called and said, I think we're done. We lost our single sole supplier, and we don't have anywhere else to turn. And it was 3 hours of discussion, and then the next morning wake up and saying, okay, we got a plan. Let's go back and find a new supplier, and let's go find a new way to process this product, et cetera. And it worked, but it's a lonely place to be an entrepreneur, very lonely to be the owner, the founder, the chief of every department for a while, and you need somebody that you can talk to. And I think great VCs add that ingredient to, as you said, just writing a check, is how do I help overcome that? How am I the sounding board? How can I be the psychologist? How can I be the friend, trusted advisor, whatever else you need?
Yeah, no,
it's very rewarding to me, and I know it is to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with the announcement of Cradlepoint and the big success, that they had, there was a lot of sleepless nights for that company to get there, and so people see that headline, and that's great. But it's really rewarding to actually be able to be there and be supportive during those periods of uncertainty or dislocation within a particular business. I like what you said too, just about the different roles that people may have. And this is a great story for a company in our first fund that just closed their Series B financing ovation. And we brought in a VP of sales that came from InSyndra and DocuSign. And I had been talking to him for a while about potentially joining. And he said, look, Mike, he said, I take companies from 5 million to 50 million. That's what I do. And I've done that over and over and over again, and I'm really good at that. I'm not good from 0 to 5, and I'm not good at 50 and beyond. I do 5 to 50. That's what I do. And that it's so refreshing, right? And I think it's a great thing for all of us to try and figure out the journey. Like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? Where am I really good at? When we get to Series A investments with our companies, we tend to sit down with the leadership and the entrepreneurs and say, okay, write down on a piece of paper everything you love to do and everything you don't love to do. Because there tends to be a match. You love to do what you're good at, right? And now you have the capital to be able to, you've earned the right to be able to replace the things that you don't like to do. And we tend to be able to backfill and be able to create, this really robust team around it. And that's just part of the process, especially in earlier stage ventures. So I don't know, do you want to spend a little time talking about the companies in the portfolio? I know I mentioned PlexTrack earlier. Do you want to talk about Crave maybe, for example?
I love this idea of Crave, and this idea has been multiplying. I've seen in other parts of this industry as well, but I think Crave has a great story to tell. So they are basically taking what I'd call a central kitchen and breaking that up into 4 or 5 or 6, I don't know the total number that they're going to have
16,
each.
yeah.
16
yeah.
Restaurants, but there is no physical restaurant because today people have become very comfortable with ordering their food, and the cost of running a restaurant when a lot of what you're doing is just delivering food and maintaining the total overhead of the restaurant is very expensive. And there's a place for sit-down restaurants that's never going away. We all love to go sit down in them, but we don't always want to do that. We also want to just be able to say, tonight I want Italian, tomorrow I want Mexican, the next day I want Thai food. And to be able to have this central kitchen that has sub-kitchens with the recipes and the delivery people, and somebody gets on the internet and says, I want this food, and they ring up our Crave Thai food. Or our Crave Mexican restaurant.
With James Beard nominee and award-winning
with incredible backing of the restaurateurs in this. So it's high-quality food, and it's this economy of scale by being able to deliver multiple types of foods right out of one central kitchen, throw it into a Crave cart, and get it to me at high quality, low cost, and I can order something different every other week. And so this is a concept that I think has massive appeal, massive potential, and now the team is executing on it.
Yeah, and one of the things that's important to us, we like to say never because we're in this we're in a dynamic part of investment in early stage, but our one never is that we invest by practitioner for practitioner. So if you don't have previous experience in a problem you're trying to solve, whatever it may be, we're not going to invest, because we like to have that. We like our investment to be investment dollars, not tuition. And so that's certainly true with Crepe. Both, a local chef is an entrepreneur in Barry Warner, and then Scott, who is a James Beard nominee chef, that's opened up 7 restaurants throughout the country. And so to really understand the pain points of that, because you and I can think that that's a great idea, but without really truly understanding what it takes to execute on that, that's really the secret sauce part of the.
And let me emphasize your statement, because we have people, and people are putting their money into this fund, trusting us that we're going to deliver on the model we have. And you said something, and I'm going to say it again because it interested me very much the first time I heard it, and it keeps ringing true, is we are investing in a business with people that are deeply knowledgeable. We're not providing tuition for them to figure out the marketplace that they're going to enter because they don't know that, but it seems like a really cool thing to do. That's not where we're going to put money, and when we're trusted with people's money to go out and deliver on a long-term value.
Yeah, correct. And so that brings us to our next company in InSyndra, which is a gym and fitness platform for gym owners to be able to run their businesses. Everything from running SKUs to booking and handling the payments and so on and so forth. And certainly the pandemic caused an interesting time for that. But during these periods of dislocation, it's actually a great time to launch something like this. And so we were able to pivot and provide a lot of things, including OTT platform to be able to do classes at home and some different things. And so they're just out now monetizing in the marketplace right now. And Alan Traylor, is a gym owner, here in Upcycle. And so he truly understood the pain points. The incumbent was bought by private equity, which sometimes it can start to become a financial transaction, and really understood the pain points of gym owners, right? By practitioner for practitioner.
If I'm a gym owner, I want to be focused on delivering an incredible experience, and if I can give somebody else the back office stuff that understands that deeply, how the back office should run for my industry, I would love to do that, so I can be out in front with my customers, and that's the value they're providing.
And the product was built very simply. We just went out to gym owners here locally and said, "What are your pain points? How do you want this run?" And then we built the tech and monetized around it. And their uptake in the market has been amazing. So that's been really exciting. Do you want to talk a little bit about FlipRide?
So I'm going to let you talk a little bit about FlipRide. I've been in there. I've watched these guys. They're amazing. Just watching them in action. It's changing the marketplace for private auto transactions. But talk about that in a little more depth.
30% of used car transactions are done private to private, and that can potentially be a shady transaction when you show up in a Walmart parking lot with a cashier's check and you're titled to your car, and there's really no institutional memory around that transaction. So on top of that, it also the platform, if you sell your car through FlipRide or buy it through there, is that you get instantaneous financing, assuming that you would qualify for that financing. Instantaneous meaning about 15 to 30 minutes, you can get finance for a used car if you qualify. So it's really taking all that friction away, and it's very consumer friendly. And then it also helps banks to be able to process these loans to make it more efficient for them, so that they'll loan more to a really important part of the economy. Private to private used car transactions are going to continue to happen. There's millions that happen, every year, and so it provides a really great platform to make that happen and reduce the friction for the consumers.
And nobody's really stepped into that like they have maybe with real estate or with some other areas. There's nobody there.
Yeah. Why don't we finish up with PlexTrack, our fourth company? I know we have a couple minutes left.
Yeah, well, PlexTrack, you started with them, with Dan DeCloss, and this idea that, how do you make life easy, especially for very online-intensive businesses, and everybody's online-intensive now, it doesn't matter what business you're in, to deal with your information security, to really dashboard that information, the security side of it, so that you can build that moat around your business. I'll tell you from an Albertson standpoint, one of the biggest concerns that we always had as an executive team was who was trying to break through our security, our data, the millions and millions of customers that we had, their information that we had deep within our computer systems. And we're not alone. I mean, it's across the world. And so to simplify that very complex job of protecting yourself from millions and millions of attacks, cyber attacks as a business every year, is a dream for large businesses and for small businesses, by the way. And PlexTrack has this ability to really look at everything simply and bring it all together, because you're usually using lots of different tools out there to protect yourself from a cybersecurity standpoint. And so we've got a way to bring that all and see it in one place. And that, I think, really, the time has come, or probably even past, for that kind of solution to be there. And this is one that can scale rapidly and worldwide, because they already have pretty amazing clients like Nike and others that are saying, we need you and we need what you provide. And these guys, they get in early and they work hard all day long, and they're constantly solving the problems ahead of the problems arising, so that they can offer this very, very unique and comprehensive solution.
Yeah, and there's nothing more validating than when you have Fortune 500 companies that are willing to trust their penetration testing to a startup. And so Dan just did. It's so validating for the product, to have, as you said, the Nikes or Mass Mutuals or the like, investing and having the CISO trust at that level the platform, because it truly is mission critical. You touched just a little bit.
CISO, Chief Information Security Officer.
Yes,
Mike talks fast.
Yeah.
It's all, his brain moves fast.
So you touched on one thing about how the PlexTrack guys get in early, and that's one of the great things that we provide here at 110 Main is when we invest in a company, we are truly elbow to elbow. Yeah. Our companies are here in the building, and there's really this great startup vibe here, where we feel like all the companies, not only can we be there, but they all feed off of the energy of each other, and really they're all there helping each other out. And so we just couldn't be more excited to be here. I told you, right before we started this, I go, gosh, Andy, I go, this is probably the most exciting time for me in my business career, because we think we're going to have first mover advantage. I just bought my place here in Warm Springs, so we're neighbors now as well. Yep. So we can walk to work together. But we couldn't be more excited.
I finished 28 years, I said, with Albertsons. I really didn't have an intention to start something next. I have 5 grandkids. I have a lot of fingers and a lot of pies. I'm involved with a lot of wonderful people in this community. And it took a lot for me to think about, do I want to jump back in? But when I saw what you guys were doing, it was one of the very few things I could imagine wanting to do, which was to be now able to really support the next generation of great companies in this valley, to focus in a tremendously accelerated manner on Idaho businesses, which I believe in strongly. I want my grandkids and my kids to have the ability to choose to live here if that's what they want, because the jobs are here, because the opportunities are here, because the big vision is here. And I'm hoping that even more other forms of capital come to this city and to this state in the same way that you've decided to make that big jump, because you guys were based for your first fund on the West Coast. Your investments were all over the world. New fund, new focus, and it's how do we build Idaho companies? And that got me off the couch and back to work again. Excited to be here and to be working together with you guys.
Well, we couldn't be more excited to have you on the team, and couldn't be more excited to be here in Idaho and what we can accomplish over the next 10, 20, 30 years and beyond. So once again, thank you to the Boise startup community, and looking forward to continuing the momentum we have. We got a lot of work to do.
Go Startup Week.